بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والعاقبة للمتقين، والجنة للموحدين، ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ولي الصالحين. وأشهد أن نبينا محمدا عبده ورسوله، فصلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وارزقنا علما تنفعنا به. آمين يا رب العالمين. Next stars today on the book نواقض الإسلام by Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah ta'ala. And we are today on الناقض السابع, the seventh nullifier, inshallah ta'ala. Right? So طيب. So we've spoken very briefly, quickly. What was the first six? The first one was shirku fi ibadatillah, shirk in the worship of Allah. Number two was wasa'it, taking intermediaries. Whoever puts between himself and Allah, wasa'it. And what does he do with them? Yad'uuhum, calls upon them. ويسألهم الشفاعة, asks them for intercession. يتوكل عليهم, puts his trust in them. This person has disbelieved. Number three was okay, whoever does not deem the disbelievers as disbelievers, man lam yukafir al-mushrikeen, or he has shak, he has doubt in their kufr, or he considers their way to be correct. This is disbelief. Number four, naqid al-rabi', the fourth one, was about the guidance of, so basically considering the guidance of other than Allah or the Prophet to be better or equal, right, to the guidance of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is disbelief. Any other ruling or guidance, whether it's hukum or judgment or guidance as a whole, hadi, there's no guidance equal to the guidance of the Prophet. The moment you say there is disbelief, or there's something better, or a better system, better judgment, then this is disbelief, right? And then five was hating what the Prophet ﷺ brought. Okay? So whoever hates anything that he brought, anything that he came with, this was an act of kufr. And we said anything about the deen, Qur'an and Sunnah, is well known, this is disbelief. And then the last one we did last week was about mockery, istihza. Right? Man istahza'a bi shay'in min dinillah. Whoever mocks anything from the deen of Allah, أو ثوابه أو عقابه, or its rewards or its punishments, disbelieves. Right? So we explained all of this last week, alhamdulillah, the issue of istihza. Khayran. Tonight we have As-Sabi', the author rahimahullah ta'ala, he says As-Sabi', the number 7, is As-Sihru, magic. As-Sihru wa minhu as-sarfu wal-'atfu. From sihr is what? Two things. Number one is called sarf, and then number two is called atf. The author mentions both, as-sarfu wal-'atfu. Right? We'll speak about that two concepts at the end of the dars. What is sarf, what is atf? So basically, sarf means to cause aversion, splits, break people apart. Atf means what? The opposite, to cause attraction, to bring people together. So he's saying sihr is kufr. And from sihr is what? Sarf, which is to split people. And from it is also atf, which is to bring people together. فَمَنْ فَعَلَهُ أَوْ رَضِيَ بِهِ كَفَرَهُ. Whoever practices magic, أو رضي به, or is pleased with it, meaning he's not the sahir himself, he's not the magician himself, but what is he? He's happy, he's pleased with it, he agrees with it. this person also disbelieves. Okay? So two things here is the sahir itself. Practicing sihr is number one is kufr. And then number two is being pleased with kufr. Is being pleased with sihr. Right? Or having no issue with it. Agreeing with it. This is also an act of disbelief. The author, he said, وَالدَّلِيلُ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى. And then he said the evidence is the statement of Allah the Most High. وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ حَتَّى يَقُولَا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 102, Allah said, but they, the two angels, referring to Harut and Marut, right, did not teach anyone until they had said, we are only a trial, نحن fitna, so do not disbelieve. Right? This entire verse is about sihr and about Sulaiman. وَمَا كَفَرَ Sulaiman. Allah said Sulaiman never committed disbelief. وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ. But the devils, they disbelieved. Why? Because they were learning sihr or teaching sihr. Right? So the ayah there, it's a lengthy verse in Surah Baqarah about sihr. وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا تَتْلُو الشَّيَاطِينُ عَلَى مُلْكِ سُلَيْمَانَ. You can go through the verse. This is the ayah that's being used here as an evidence. Parts of the ayah is being used to prove that sihr, learning it, just studying it, as well as teaching it, is also sihr. Sorry, is also kufr. Is this understood? So someone can say, I'm just learning it. I'm not going to practice it. That is kufr already. You're not allowed to learn sihr. Allahu A'lam. Okay? So the ruling on sihr, what did I say, is to learn it is kufr. وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ حَتَّى يَقُولَا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. So to teach it and to study it is disbelief. Right? Let's just open up the verse. Baqarah. So what was your question there, Akhi? As a trial, yes. نحن فتنة. But they also said to them, فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. Are you with me? So this knowledge, don't go into it. It's a test. فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. So don't delve into it. Understand? Meaning, don't practice magic and don't learn magic because it's kufr. That's what the ayah means. Hence, the command is from the angels. فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. Don't go into this. We've been sent with it as a test. نَحْنُ fitna. We're coming as a test. But what's the instruction? How do you save yourself from the test? Don't disbelieve. Meaning, don't learn and don't teach and don't do anything with sihr. This is what the ayah is teaching us. Are you with me? So even though the angels were sent with this, it's a form of a test from Allah. But the instruction is clear. Is that the people should stay away from this practice. Because the practice is, it contains disbelief. Learning the sihr contains disbelief, as well as teaching the sihr contains disbelief. Right? Khair. So obviously under the issue of sihr now, we got a couple of issues to discuss. Right, so I got 6 main points to get through, inshallah. The first main point is just to look at sihr from a definition point of view. Okay, so number one, the word sihr in the Arabic language, the scholars of the lugha, of the language, they said that sihr means is everything in which, or afwan, Ibn Manzur said that everything whose means are subtle and concealed is sihr. Everything whose means are subtle and concealed is sihr. Right? So you can understand from this definition that sihr is to do with what? Things that are unknown, hidden, is concealed. Because generally when sihr is practiced, it's not out in the open. And even the magic itself will be hidden away. The magic itself will be hidden away. As for the technical term, in terms of the Sharia, when we say sihr, what do we mean? Then the ulama said magic has two primary forms. So when they define it, they define it into two forms. Number one is uqdun wa ruqa. It's incantations, spells and talismans. Qira'at wa ruqa wa talasim. So it's incantations, spells and talismans, like amulets. Right? So uqd, what does uqd mean? What's uqd? That's aqd. What's uqd? Uqad. Uqad. Knots. Comes in surah وَمِنْ شَرِّ النَّفَّثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ. That the nafathat, Allah speaks about them in the Qur'an. The female, the witches basically, female magicians, they would do what? Blow into knots. Uqad. They would read their spells and blow it into knots. So they take string and tie knots and blow onto the knots, and that's how they'd lock the magic in. Right? And obviously try to use DNA and from the person that they are afflicting and so forth. So this is the first type. It's incantations, spells and talismans. This includes your knots. This category includes tying knots, reciting incantations like ruqya. Like we do ruqya, but they do their own kufri ruqya. Ruqya where they're reading in the name of the devil, or they're reading certain spells and so forth. Or it could be, as I said, talismans, performing, ta'weezes, or it could be on a piece of paper. You'll see they have not knots, so it's grids and numbers and formulas and symbols. Not the eye necessarily, but the eye is more superstitious belief. But the sihr, we're talking sihr here. Them, they create talismans, they're creating stuff. It could be written out, like this. And this form is done when the magician seeks the help of the devils. This type of sihr is when the magician seeks the help of the devils in harming the victim. So it's not just something that's done, someone reading something, and there's always assistance with the devil, a contract with the devil involved in this type of sihr. Okay? So there's the magician seeks the assistance of the devils to harm the victim. And this is the type of sihr Allah is talking about in Surah Al-Falaq. وَمِنْ شَرِّ النَّفَّاثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ. Those who blow into knots. طيب. Then number two, the second type of sihr, the second form of sihr, it's concerning medicines and substances. Adawat. Or adwiya, medicines and substances. Yani this is when first people put some type of formula together, a potion or something, that affects the victim's body. Physically, they can be affected. It can affect their mind, their emotions, or their will. Their irada, their desire to do things. Person could be mashoor and he's just lost his desire to do anything. Just can't do anything. Not bothered to do anything. It's one of the effects of magic. It takes their will away, their desire away to do anything. So the mind, the body, emotion, and even your desire, your will can be affected. Right? So you get the two ways that basically sihr is done. Okay? Is the one that has, number one is with this clear recitation, incantation, or it's written out into talisman. Number two is substances. And sometimes you get people consume sihr. Sometimes they consume the sihr. It's been put into food, or it's in the meat, or something to drink. This is what we are referring to here. This can affect the person. So you'll notice if you've done ruqya or seen ruqya, what happens to a person when they're mashoor and they get cured? What happens to them? They throw up. They throw up, and you might see black in the vomit, and it happens often. They start throwing up because the sihr is coming out. And this is also why Raqis use stuff like senna leaves, and which are like laxatives to cleanse the system. Because if there is any sihr in the system, the hope is that it will cleanse the system. Okay? طيب. So this is the first, number one, which was, what's the first issue? The definition. Just give us an understanding of ruqya, of sihr, which is two types. It could be potions, medicines, foods, substances, or it could be the incantations, the blowing into knots. But they both fall under the word sihr. Okay? The next important issue is, does sihr have a haqiqah? Yani, is it real? Does it have an effect on a person, or is it imaginary? Is it imaginary? Is it just, takhyil, where it's like illusion and trickery? Or is sihr actually something that can afflict you, harm you, destroy you? This is an issue that the ulama discussed. What do we believe? It can. And this is the view of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah and the majority of the scholars, which is sihr has a haqiqah. أن للسحر حقيقة. أن للسحر حقيقة. It has a reality, it has an effect. Okay? Imam al-Qurtubi, he said, rahimahullah, ذهب أهل السنة إلى أن السحر ثابت وله حقيقة. Ahlul Sunnah held the view that sihr is real, it's thabit, it's established, and it has a reality. وذهب عامة المعتزلة أن السحر لا حقيقة له. But the majority of the Mu'tazilites, the sect, the Mu'tazila group, they held the view that magic has no reality. It's not real. وإنما هو تمويه وتخيل وإيهام. It's merely deception, illusion, and trickery. That's the Mu'tazila view. Right? But the vast Ahlul Sunnah said no. It's real. And Ibn Hazm al-Zahiri agreed with the Mu'tazila, the Zahiriya, from the Zahiriya group, the literalists. Right? They said it's not real. What is the Shaykh's name in I think he's in America, he's an Indian Shaykh. It's like a famous hadith called, is it Akram something? Nadwi or something. Anyways, I see recently he said the same thing. Sihr is not real. Sihr is trickery. It's just, obviously Ahlul Sunnah are saying like, why don't you go and look at the case of a person who's mashoor and you tell me that's trickery? You see what that person's experiencing of hardship, of struggle. Because sihr can be severe. and you have your view and say it's not real, it's trickery. No. Can it be disbelief? It's not disbelief, no, because the ulama never said the person disbelieves by that statement. It's their ijtihad. They saying sihr is something, but it's not something that can afflict others, harm others. So it's something people do. The magicians do it, but it's more deception, trickery. You will see the evidence now. I'll mention the evidence what they use. Now, I'm going to speak about that now. So, firstly, let's look at Ahlus Sunnah's dalil. Why do Ahlus Sunnah say sihr is real? Allah said, وَمِن شَرِّ النَّفَّثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ, that you must seek refuge from the evil of those who blow into knots. Ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi, he said, had magic not possessed a real effect, Allah would not have commanded us to seek refuge from it. If it wasn't effective, why would Allah put it there? You must read it every day. وَمِن شَرِّ النَّفَّاثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ وَمِن شَرِّ النَّفَّاثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ. If it's not real, if it's just trickery, this wouldn't make sense, right? So that's first dalil. It's apparent from this ayah, and the rest of the evidence is that sihr has a haqiqah, it has a reality and an effect. Number two, in Surah Baqarah, the ayah I mentioned earlier, Allah said in that verse, Surah Baqarah verse 102, فَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ, after the angels warned them, and the angel said, we came as a test, فَلَا تَكْفُرْ, don't commit kufr, yani do not learn magic, do not practice magic, it's kufr. But what did the people do? They learned it in any case. And so Allah said, فَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ, they learned, مِنْهُمَا, from those two angels, مَا يُفَرِّقُونَ بِهِ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَزَوْجِهِ, that which causes separation between a man and his wife. There's a type of sihr, which is, what do we call this? Sarf, right? Which the authors mentioned in the text, a sarf. Allah tells us this in the Qur'an, that there's a type of sihr that can cause separation between a man and his wife. A couple, a married couple. And you find this happening in the world today. You see ruqya cases. I've personally been to one case where there's a marriage, there's no issues in the marriage. There's no known, problems in the marriage. There's no disputes in the marriage. They don't have a problem with each other. They're both practicing. They're both just good people to each other. But there's aversion. They don't want to be together. They don't want to touch each other. Ask them on their own. Your wife? No issues. She's a good person. But when they come together, there's, feelings all of a sudden. There's awkwardness. And other things happen as well. Other things happening in the home as well. Maybe some bad dreams and nightmares and this and that. But the point is, every time they come together, there's issues. Right? I know of a case where people got married, went away on a honeymoon, as they say. The sister got ill. Ill where she couldn't walk. She came home on a wheelchair. No one knows what's wrong with her. Her father's doctor, specialist checked her. No one knows what's wrong with her. No one knows what's wrong with her. Everything else, scans, tests, is clear. She's in a wheelchair. Right? Just after getting married. And the ruqya is done on, and you can see there's effects, there's responses, she's mashoor, she's afflicted. But when you look into these people's cases, you find there was an ex. And the ex is practicing this, and the ex was going to these people. And in these cases, you see these type of issues cropping up. And so where did these issues come from in the marriage? Why is this one getting affected? Why is this marriage not working? When they both wanted to work and try their best, but there's just constantly, blockages, as they say. This can be a result of sihr. I'm not saying every single marriage that breaks is sihr. No, that's not true either. But it can happen. And especially when and you can see it's strange. And you'll see other signs as well. Other issues that they're going through. Right? But clearly there is this where people get afflicted in their marriages. Number three, third dalil is the Prophet ﷺ was afflicted by sihr, as the uncle mentioned. Aisha radiallahu anha said, سُحِرَ النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم حتى يخيل إليه أنه يفعل الشيء وما فعله. That he was affected by magic until he imagined that he had done something when in fact he had not done it. It affected him physically, right? He thought at times he did something, but actually he didn't do it. And the scholars, they mentioned his affliction was worldly and it did not affect revelation or conveying the deen. So when he's got, it was about worldly matters, not about the religion coming through or the Qur'an being revealed or the way he conveyed the Qur'an. This wasn't affected. Allah preserved this. Right? But physically he was affected. Physically he was affected and it had an effect. So magic has an effect and a haqiqah. And last dalil will be the Prophet ﷺ said, من تصبح كل يوم 7 مرات عجوة لم يضره ذلك اليوم سم ولا سحر. That whoever eats 7 ajwa dates every morning will not be harmed that day by poison or magic. Meaning magic can harm you. These are all dalils that magic is real, it can harm. And this is the view of, as I said, the majority of the scholars, which is the correct view. Now, why did the Mu'tazila differ? What caused them an issue? Who can think? When the Qur'an is sihr mentioned, and there's no real effect to it. Right? If we look at the story of Musa and the Fir'aun's magicians, we all know the story. Musa came out, Fir'aun brought his magicians, and they had a battle. Right? And what did Musa say to them? قال بل ألقوا. You cast your sticks or your magic first. Right? And so when they did, what happened? What does Allah say? فَلَمَّا أَلْقَوْا. When they cast down their ropes, سَحَرُوا أَعْيُنَ النَّاسِ. What happened? They bewitched the eyes of the people. They bewitched the eyes of the people. So what is meant by this type of sihr? It was trickery, this deception that they were doing. They weren't doing like other type of sihr. What's apparent here is what they were doing was أعين الناس. The people's eyes were tricked, deceived. Right? In another verse, Surah Taha, their ropes, فَإِذَا حِبَالُهُمْ وَعِصِيُّهُم, and staffs, their ropes and staffs appeared to them, or to him, يُخَيَّلُ إِلَيْهِ. Right? Meaning it was deception. It tricked through their magic as though they were moving. Like this, the sticks that they threw were moving. But this was all takhyil. It was all trickery. Okay? It was trickery that they did. So the Mu'tazila are saying what? See, Allah's calling it sihr. And this was pure trickery. So that's what magic is. Magic is trickery, is deception. Right? Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, how do we respond to this type of dalil? We've given our proofs that prove magic is real. Now we got this guy saying, oh, see, magic here, Quran says, is trickery. How do we combine the evidences? Can we combine the evidences? Linguistically, you mean? So you meaning linguistically, it means to conceal and hide, and so from that point of view, it's sihr, linguistically. Okay, maybe. Okay, so what does that mean? Right, so what does that prove to us? That sihr is of different types. So we say, we agree with you that what they did was trickery, and that's still a form of sihr. As you mentioned, it can fall into the linguistic form of the word. But that's not the only type of sihr that exists. That's not the only type of sihr that exists. So you cannot limit your understanding of sihr to only what those magicians did. That's where you're going wrong. We're saying, yeah, that was trickery, but there's another type of sihr which is effective. So our conclusion is magic includes both. It includes real magic that genuinely harms people and also illusionary magic. That's just deception, it just deceives the eyes. So even today, you might find a sahir, he's doing proper sihr, and you might find another guy, sleight of hand. He's a trickster, he pulls a few, hid it in his sleeve, sleight of hand, they call it. He just tricks you with his eyes, this finger here, did this, the coin came out, all these tricks that people learn. That is not the sihr that we are talking about in this as kufr. Understand? When we say disbelief, we're not referring to sleight of hand or those type of tricks that people, pull. That's not disbelief. And secondly, is it permissible? Would you say it's permissible? Because of the deception, it's best to stay away from it. Because it's deceiving. Obviously, you get very basic, simple things, you talk to maybe to a kid. That's one thing. But doing proper tricks that, deceives people, makes them think that you are doing something like actual magic, that's how it says not permissible. This I would say is not permissible, right? But tricks for kiddies and those little, inshallah, that's innocent. There's nothing in it that's harmful. Wallahu a'lam. But the big tricks that people are pulling out that makes it seem like they have some powers, and this should be avoided. And the scholar says it's not permissible. What card tricks? It depends what they're doing. If it's just tricky, like I said, just playing around with cards, and they got a way and a way to move it around and find your card, and you know that's not disbelief. Obviously not. That's not the dirty sihr that we're referring to. Okay, so the actual sihr we're referring to as disbelief is the, like I mentioned earlier, where you're reciting things. It's incantation. It's talasims, these talismans. It's uqad, knots. It's the potions, the sihr that's put onto food to make people sick and harm them. That's the sihr that we are referring to. Okay? Card tricks, this, that, sleight of hand. This is not the issue that's kufr. Because there's no disbelief that the person is actually doing. There's no act of kufr that the person is falling into, right? But firstly, is it because he lied? He said, I'll give you the dates and didn't give it. So there's lying in it, and there's a difference between a trick that someone pulled, you know? So the issue of taking hadith from a kadhab. You understand? So the ulama in general don't take knowledge from a kadhab, a person who's not trusted. Are you with me? Um, so it depends. As a witness, you see now this issue um about who is a valid witness and who's not is a tricky one, because to be a witness, what's the conditions? You're supposed to be just and thiqah, right? must be adil, must have adil, adala, and trustworthy. Now, trustworthiness means you're not a kadhab, and so forth, fine. But adala means you're not a fasiq. You're not a known sinner, open sinner. Now, if we get strict on that, like Shaykh ibn Taymiyyah talks about this, and he says, ghiba is a major sin. He says, show me people who don't do ghiba, who actually don't never do ghiba. So he says, if we look at just ghiba, that means no one is fit to be a witness anymore. You understand? No one's fit to be a witness anymore because he does ghiba, everyone's committing so much sins. So the conditions of a proper witness should be someone that I would say is not a known major sinner. That's the way it's applied these days. He's not a known major sinner that we can't trust him at all. But look into a nikah, they bring you any guy as a witness. No one checks. Is this guy practicing? Is he praying? Can I use you as a witness? You understand? The Salaf was so strict. Imam Ahmad, what's the famous quote of Imam Ahmad? Not miss witr. Whoever doesn't pray witr, you don't use him as a witness. You don't pray witr, you're not a witness. You can't, he's not fit to be a witness. He's not a shahid. Don't accept the shahada from him, meaning not the shahada of kalima. Don't accept his witness. So he comes and he bears testimony in the court. So you don't pray witr. Khalas, you can't use you. That's Imam Ahmad's standards. Today, if you apply that standard, guy probably doesn't pray Salah Aslan. Maybe he doesn't pray Isha. Right? So just generally, it's difficult. There's conditions mentioned, but how often do the people actually apply that? Maybe in courts. Maybe in a court, they'll actually scrutinize the witness. Like if he's bearing testimony to a crime or something major, serious, then perhaps the judge will scrutinize the witness. But in reality, like I said, these witnesses these days, for especially nikah and these things, contracts, that guy's my witness. Who's the guy? The guy's maybe he's the problem. Witness not accepted. You understand? Allahu alam. It's. I would say in the courts probably a bit more strict, but day to day. But as for Bukhari, obviously taking hadith, he feels the person not trustworthy, so kadhab. I'm not going to take from him, right? But in general, the Salaf would not take knowledge from a kadhab. They would not take knowledge from a liar. Imam Malik said the same thing, and others as well, that they don't take knowledge from someone who's a liar. Wallahu a'lam. So, magic as a haqiqah, right? That's what we've discussed now. Can it transform reality? Meaning, can a magician change one object into another? He says, I'll turn this water into wine. Or I'll change this stone into gold. The soil will change into iron. Or I'll create life. I can create life. Through sihr, I'll give life. Can this happen? No, it can't happen. This obviously, sihr can harm, but it cannot change. They don't actually have powers like this, where they can change things. This is where there's delusion. This is where there's trickery. Hatta Dajjal will do this. He will trick you, deceive you. But it's not actual. He doesn't actually have ability to change things. If that was the case, Sahirs would be the richest people in the world. They'll be changing everything into gold and silver, but they don't have that abilities. And that's for Allah Azza wa Jal alone. Right? They can't do this. Okay? So only Allah has the ability to change the nature of something and to create and so forth. They don't have these type of abilities. The next mas'ala is hukmus sahir, the ruling on the magician. What is the ruling on a person who practices magic or is known as a sahir? The first view of the ulama is that the sahir is a kafir. A sahir, kafir. As-sahiru kafir. The sahir is a disbeliever. This is the view of the majority of the scholars. From amongst them is Abu Hanifa, Malik, and Ahmad, rahimahumullah. Abu Hanifa, Malik, and Ahmad agreed, the three of them, that as-sahir kafir. The one who practices magic is a disbeliever. And obviously, it's the view of who? Our author. Hence, he's included sihr into the nawaqid of Islam. What's the dalil? The ayah in Surah Baqarah, right? Part of that ayah, Allah said, وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا. Sulaiman never committed disbelief, but the devils, they disbelieved. Why? What did they do? They took the magic. They went to learn it, taught it, and implemented it. This was the kufr that they committed. Right? So, it's clear that sihr is kufr according to the Qur'an, according to this verse of the Qur'an. Now, Malikaini. Hmm? Oh, Malikaini. Like two kings. Hmm. I don't know, to be honest. I never come across it before. I just know them as angels because the Quran says that they are angels. How does the ayah go? Yeah, Malakaini. وما كفر سليمان ولكن الشياطين كفروا يعلمون الناس السحر. ملكين ببابل هاروت وماروت. وما أنزل على الملكين, it was sent down to the two angels in Babylon, ببابل, Harut and Marut. So there the ayah clearly says Malakaini. I haven't come across the tafsir of Malikaini. I haven't checked that up myself, so I don't know. على كل حال, we can check it later. But the ayah is still clear on the kufr, that it is kufr to study, teach, and practice magic. Okay? If you remind me later, I'll check it up, inshallah, if I can find the tafsir on it. So this is the first dalil. The second reasoning the scholars use is that, generally speaking, what happens with magic? It's always with the assistance of the jinn, the devil. And the devil, as I always say, the devil does not work for free. He wants something in return. And so when he does you a favor, he wants you to do him a favor. What can you do for him? Usually, dhabh. He wants you to sacrifice an animal in his name. Or even sacrificing to a grave. Or he'll tell you to insult Allah, curse Allah, or curse the messenger. Or you have to desecrate the Qur'an. Right? Or other acts of kufr, major acts of disbelief, clear-cut kufr. The aim of the devil is to corrupt your deen. He wants to make you part of his army, part of the disbelievers. So you go to him, the magician goes to him, and we can do this for you, no problem, but this is what you need to do for us. And that usually includes acts of clear-cut kufr. The Quran thing you've seen, I don't know if you guys have seen pictures these days going around. When they find sihr, they find it in the Quran. The Quran is desecrated. The words of filth written, filth put into it. You know, this is what they're forced to do. What the people are forced to do. Or the sahir made them do. That's what the jinn wants. That's what the devil wants. Maybe the better word is to use shaitan. The shaitan wants this. Because he's enemy of Allah. So hence, the ulama said it's kufr because it also includes kufr. It necessitates kufr. The sihr will usually be connected to other acts of disbelief. Right? The magician will be made to do acts of disbelief. Then they'll get the help of the shaitan. Then he can do certain things or get certain knowledge and so forth. Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala had a slightly different view. He said that the magician should be asked, describe your magic. Should be questioned. And he said, if the magic contains disbelief, then he's a kafir. If he had to do those things, then it's disbelief. But if the magic does not contain disbelief, then he's not declared a disbeliever based on the magic itself. Are you with me? So the others are saying the sihr is kufr. Plus it entails other acts of kufr. Ash-Shafi'i rahimahullah says, the sihr itself is not kufr. It depends if he was made to do those acts of kufr alongside with it, then he's a disbeliever. Otherwise, he's not a disbeliever. The dalil he uses is a narration of Aisha radiallahu anha. Aisha radiallahu anha had a slave girl who did sihr to her. She had a slave girl who did sihr to her. And Aisha did not have her executed. And Ibn Hajar said this chain of narration is strong. It's sahih hadith. So which means that Aisha did not consider all types of sihr to be kufr. Did not consider all types of sihr to be kufr. And then they go back to the basic rule, which is a Muslim remains a Muslim until there's clear evidence to prove otherwise. Right? You're Muslim, you stay Muslim. Not like you have to every day to check, is he still Muslim? No. If you're Muslim, you're Muslim until it's proven that you committed disbelief, right? So they stick to that principle and they say, not every type of sihr is kufr. It depends if it entails kufr or not. This is the view of Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala. Naam. I give my soul to the jinn. Are they joking? What does that mean? Give my soul to the jinn means a devil worshipper. Go, whatever the devil wants me to do, I'll do it. Allah Alam, what the person means by saying those statements. If he means he's a devil worshipper or he obeys the devil and does whatever the devil, obviously this is going to be kufr. Right? Yeah. So he's saying the sihr itself is not kufr. But it depends if he was made to do acts of kufr. Like if the devil said to him, you must do this, this and that, and it was blatant kufr, then he's kafir. Mm. It depends what he was made to do to achieve the sihr. Understand? That's what Imam Shafi is saying. As for removing sihr, we'll touch on that later. Okay? طيب. So two categories of magic we're coming to now. The next issue, which is there are two categories of magic, as based on what I described before. Number one is magic performed through seeking the assistance of the devils. Right? Magic that is performed through seeking the help of the shayateen. And this is the type that is outright disbelief or kufr. Right? Because as we said, once you go via the help of the devil, you will end up committing clear acts of kufr, and this will then cause a person to leave the fold of Islam. So this is the type of kufr that's mentioned in the Qur'an, or sihr that's mentioned in the Qur'an as kufr, is when you are using the shayateen and you are performing acts of kufr, um, and this causes you to leave Islam, right? As for the magic that's performed through medicines and substances, then what do we say about this? You say it's not kufr. Okay? The magic that's performed through medicines and substances, yani the person is not using shaitan, um, could involve smoke, could involve drugs, it could involve potions, substances. In fact, the Hanbali school of thought even agree with Imam Shafi'i on this issue, that it is not kufr and the person is not to be executed either. So the first category is where they differ, right? Imam Shafi'i is saying it depends, if you did kufr, then you kafir. They're saying whether you did it or not, sihr is sihr, right? You went via the shaitan, recitation and these things, sihr. As for substances people do, again, how it is done, the realities of it, I don't know. But sometimes they burn things, can even be used through drugs. Um, they say this is not an act of disbelief. This type of sihr is not an act of disbelief, but it's a major sin. It's a kabirah min kabairi dhunub. Okay? On condition you're not using the who? The shaitan. They are using shaitan in this as well, then this would be disbelief. Are we together? How do you do it? I don't know. What is meant by the word sihr, I think, is the important point here. Um, and it goes back to that linguistic definition, right? But this could just be referred to herbs that causes hallucination, it causes confusion, um, or drugs, as we said, smokes, breathe this in, and that causes your mind to hallucinate, causes, right? I think this is what is meant by this. But it's not like black magic where you are, uh, causing the person, yani doing something using shaitan and causing certain, that type of harms. And I would say this type of harm would be less than the first type. the actual sihr that we're referring to, like the uh now. No, sorry, pain. Not uqad. Mm. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. No, that is the kufr. That's obviously the uqad, the recitation on there. That's not just medicinal herbs and stuff, right? Um. So even, yeah, just like in Islam, where it says if a person practices magic by only using medicine and the like, and there's no involvement of jinn in it, this does not take him out of all of Islam, right? My understanding of this is it's not uh the sihr we understand as sihr. This is more medicinal. They give you something and it causes an effect. And from that, the word sihr also is derived. It's hidden effects. What's the cause? We don't know. There's a hidden cause. You understand? Um, but this is not the type of sihr that is being referred to here in the Quran. Are you with me? So this type of sihr is more like mixtures, potions, drugs, and smokes. Breathe this in, do this, but it has an effect on the person that's unknown, or the person won't know where the effects or how the effects have come about. Right? This type of sihr, they referred to as sihr, but this is not the kufri type of sihr. This is because there's no jinn work in it, there's no working with the shaitan in it, there's no desecration, there's no acts of kufr associated with it, um, and so forth. Understand? That's my understanding of the issue, based upon a little what I've read on that section of sihr. Now, agreed upon, I think so. This is, for example, this is from the Hanbali text. فأما الذي يسحر بأدوية وتدخين وسقي شيء لا يضر فإنه لا يكفر ولا يقتل. Hanabila say this: as one who performs magic using medicines, smoke, or by giving someone a substance that does not cause serious harm, does not disbelieve and is not executed. Right? So this is, yani, I don't think it's because they're not doing anything dirty. You understand? There could be harm. There could be some issues with it, yes. So it's a kabira, but this is not the sihr that we are referring to in this nullifier. And the ayat are mentioning as disbelief. Okay, it's a type of, it's referred to as sihr by the scholars because of the effects it has. It comes with hidden effect, right? But this is where they just use herbs and stuff, and could be drugs, could be smoke, could be other things a person made to inhale or consume, then causes certain effects to their body and changes and to their mind and their will, and right. So it's not permissible because you are harming them, but it's not done through acts of disbelief. This is understood. Okay. Wallahu a'lam. Khair. So it is definitely kufr when there is talismans or recitation of sihr, or especially when you're using the shaitan, and the shaitan causes you to do acts, that's agreed upon. If he causes you to do acts of kufr, that's agreed upon. Ash-Shafi'i is the one who differed slightly and said only if he does that. Others said no, sihr is sihr. Yani meaning the sihr of incantation, the sihr of spells, the sihr of uqad, the sihr of uh, writing out these talismans and words of sihr and so forth. This they say is sihr. That's kufr automatically. Whether you had to do acts of kufr or not, they don't. They say the act itself is sihr, is kufr. Okay. Now, when we look at the next issue, which is what is the punishment of the magician? What is the punishment for the magician? The first view is yuqtal, he must be killed, and his head should be chopped off. Right? And obviously, this must be done by an authority in a Muslim land after the case has been proven and it's been, then they can do this. And in places like Saudi, they still do it. In places like Saudi, they kill the magicians, for example. Right? And this is the view of Imam Malik and Imam Ahmad. And some said Abu Hanifa as well. Why? Because they said it's kafir. Understand? These three imams, all three said Sahir is kafir, and so therefore he must be killed. Just like a murtad must be killed. And they mentioned that this comes from many of the Sahaba, like Umar ibn al-Khattab, Uthman ibn Affan, Umar's son and daughter, Abdullah ibn Umar, and his daughter Hafsa, and Jundub ibn Abdullah, radiallahu anhum ajma'een. Many of the Sahaba elders view that the Sahir must be yuqtal bis-sayf, he must be killed by the sword. And this one companion, Jundub, he narrated that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Haddu sahiri darbatun bis-sayf." That the prescribed punishment for the magician is to be struck with a sword. Although this hadith is da'if, right? It's weak. However, the view, this is the ma'ruf view of the Sahaba, which strengthens the weak narration. Okay? And Jundub radiallahu anhu himself is reported that he struck a magician with his sword. So even though the hadith has weakness in it, the narrator himself was acting upon it. He killed a sahir with his sword. Umar radiallahu anhu, it's reported from Bajala rahimahullah, who said, جاءنا كتاب عمر قبل موته بسنة اقتلوا كل ساحر فقتلنا ثلاث سواحر. He said, a letter from Umar reached us 1 year before his death, stating, execute every sahir. And we killed 3 female magicians after that they found. Hafsa radiallahu anha, Umar's daughter, it's authentically narrated that, and she's also who? The wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She had a slave girl who also bewitched her, just like Aisha. And what did she do? Ordered that this girl be killed. She commanded that this girl be killed. Right? So the ruling of the sahir is what? Yuqtal. That they must be killed by the sword. They must be killed by the sword. The second opinion would be the view of Imam Shafi'i. What will he say? The same what he said about the ruling. That the magician will be executed if, what? If his magic constitutes disbelief. If his magic constitutes disbelief, then the person will be killed. What is dalil? The hadith of Aisha. Aisha did not kill the girl who bewitched her. So what's most likely the case is, this girl didn't do acts of disbelief. Maybe she used some shrabs or something, did something to Aisha radiallahu anha, and Aisha punished her but didn't have her killed. So Imam Shafi'i has combined the evidences on this issue. And that's the conclusion he's come to. Shaykh Muhammad al-Amin al-Shinqiti rahimahullah agrees with this view. Sheikh Muhammad Amina Shinqiti was the teacher of Sheikh bin Baz and that generation of scholars, the author of the famous tafsir Adwa'ul Bayan. He agreed with this view of Ash-Shafi'i rahimahullah. Although he says the other view is qawi jiddan, it's also very strong. He says the other view that the disbelievers and must be killed is a strong view, but he agrees with this view because he's taken all of the evidences into consideration, just like Imam Ash-Shafi'i rahimahullah. So there is ikhtilaf on the issue, just to be clear. The Sahir, are they kafir or not? There's difference of opinion there. And then when are they killed? That the same difference of opinion exists over there, and Allah knows best. Right? The fifth issue is the ruling on visiting magicians and soothsayers. The ruling on visiting magicians and soothsayers or fortune tellers. Okay? And we got 5 categories I'm going to get through here. Number 1, asking them and believing their claims. Asking them and believing their claims concerning the absolute unseen. Now, firstly, what do we mean by absolute unseen? Al-Ghaib al-Mutlaq. The absolute unseen refers to matters that no created being could know. It refers to matters that no created being could know independently through ordinary means. No created being could know independently through ordinary means, or observation or information from another created being. This is what's called al-ghaib al-mutlaq. Any information that's you couldn't know ordinarily by yourself. Nor can you get this information from who? From others. Or through observation. Like what? When is Qiyamah? Can you research this issue? You can't. Can you find out from anyone else? You can't. What's going to happen in the future? In detail. Not saying, I think in the future things are going to get worse. Yeah, okay, we can see that there's a trend. There's a trend. We're not talking about that. We're saying on this day, one day, so and so is going to happen, and this one's going to detailed. That's ghaib mutlaq. You can't get that information from anyone. Or the reality of what's concealed in people's hearts. What's concealed in your heart, my heart. You can't get access to that information. Okay, and any other matter Allah has kept exclusively to Himself. Any other matter of the ghaib that's unknown to creation. So if I go to a what? A magician or soothsayer or fortune teller, and I ask them matters, believing their claims about the absolute unseen. So they give you information about, the absolute unseen. There's no way they could get this information. And I believe that they know this knowledge. What's the ruling on this? It's major kufr. Out of fold of Islam. Because you've given this sahir attributes of Allah. You've given him attributes of Allah. No one knows the unseen except Allah. Right? قُلْ لَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ الْغَيْبَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Say, none in the heavens and the earth knows the unseen except Allah. No one knows the unseen except Allah. Qur'an, Surah Naml, verse 65. It's the proof. No one knows the unseen except Allah. Okay? So the moment you believe the sahid knows it, you trust him, you accepted what he said, you've disbelieved. Category number 2 is asking them about the relative unseen and believing that they know it independently. Asking them about the relative unseen. So it's different to the first unseen now. Other one was mutlaq. This one is a relative unseen and you believe that they know it independently. What's meant by this relative unseen? Al-ghaib al-nasabi. It is something hidden from one person because of his location, time, or limited knowledge. It's something hidden from another person because of his location, because the time he's living, or because of limited knowledge. But it may be known to another created being. It may be known to another created being. So to me, it might be unknown. To you, it might be known. Or to someone else, it might be known. For example, the location of a missing person. That guy kidnapped, he hid the person somewhere. We don't know where he is. He knows, we don't know. Right? Or a lost item. Where is the item? No one knows. It's lost. It fell in the drains or something, but it's lost. Or the place where magic was maybe hidden. Sometimes people are mashoor. Where's the magic? It's hidden, buried in the ground, thrown into the ocean. Okay? Even the cause of an illness, the scholars mentioned. It's ghaib nasabi. It's unknown to some and known to others. So they're not from the absolute unseen. That's known only to Allah, for example. Because they could be witnessed or known by another person or being. Are you with me? So if again a person goes to a magician, asks them about this relative unseen, ghaib nasabi, and he believes that this person knows it independently by himself. He's got the knowledge of the lost item. What's the ruling on this? It's kufr akbar. It's major shirk. Major kufr. Why? That's an attribute of Allah as well. Even though it's, say, nasabi. If I believe this sahir knows it, this fortune teller just knows. So I ask him, listen, my child was kidnapped. Where is the child? He says, the child is there. And I said, this guy knows exactly by himself. By himself, he's got this knowledge. This is an act of disbelief. Once again, attributing Allah's attributes to this person. Okay? Are we all together? Now, category number 3 will be again asking them about the relative unseen, and I believe the devil informs them. I believe I'm going to the sahir, I'm looking for my lost item or my lost child, and I know the shaitan can help him. I'm going to ask him because I know he worked with jinn. And the jinn is going to inform him. I don't believe he knows the unseen. I don't believe he knows the unseen, not the restricted unseen, not the unrestricted unseen. But I know he works with shaitan, jinns, and the jinns have their ways. And that's how you will locate the missing item. Okay? What's the ruling on this? Kufr. It's not kufr. Sinful. Major sin. Major sin. Kufr. They'll ask you to do something. You mean the magician will say to you, go do something. Okay? But we can separate between the two then. And so if you do acts of kufr, that's kufr. But what if the magician says, give me £1,000,000? He says, give me £1,000,000. I'll use my networks and we'll find your child. Okay? That hadith's coming up. Okay? So some say this is minor shirk. Minor shirk. This is what? Minor shirk. Because it could lead to major shirk. Right? Anything that can lead to shirk is major, is minor shirk, right? But others say this is still an act of. I'll read the hadith to you. There's a hadith that says, "Man ata arrafan أو كاهنا فصدقه بما يقول فقد كفر بما أنزل على محمد." That whoever goes to a fortune teller or soothsayer and he believes in what he says, he believes him, then this person has disbelieved in what was sent to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Understand? So some scholars said this applies to the first two categories. But if you don't believe him, you believe he's getting it through another created being, then you're not attributing anything divine to him. Therefore, it is an act of minor shirk that can lead you to major shirk. Do we understand this point? A lost item. But the thing is, it's the same thing. Because it's both ghaibi. If I ask about the future, that's ghaib. If I ask about the lost item, it's also ghaib. You understand? So if I believe he knows the item, he knows where it is by himself, then this is saddaqahu bima yaqul. Then you believe in what he says. You believe this guy's a fortune teller. You believe he's got these powers, then this is kufr. But if the issue now is, if I believe he knows where it is because of the jinn will help him. I'm not attributing divine powers to him. Understand? I know he's getting it via a jinn who's another created being who has the ability to work with other jinns and find it. So scholars said this is minor shirk. Some scholars said this is minor shirk. This is not attributing anything divine to the person. And even the hadith says, even if you apply the hadith, it says minor kufr. Not where he's out the fold of Islam. Right? So this is the issue if you believe it comes via a jinn or so forth. And that's the one hadith that proves it's a type of kufr. Just to go to them and ask them is already kufr. But whether it's major kufr or minor depends on the situation as we've described now in the first three categories. The other ruling that applies to the person who goes to a kahin or a soothsayer or a magician is what? The Prophet ﷺ said, yes, من أتى عرافا فسأله أو من أتى عرافا فسأله عن شيء لم تقبل صلاة 40 ليلة. Whoever goes to a fortune teller and asks him about something will not have his salah accepted for 40 nights. So your salah will not be accepted for 40 nights. You go to a fortune teller, ask him something, there's no salah that will be accepted for 40 days and 40 nights. Right? And this doesn't mean you don't pray. You still have to make the salah. But you get no reward for salah. Right? So you have to pray. If you don't pray, that's another sin. Another major sin. You have to pray, but you get no reward for praying as a punishment for going to a kahin or an arraf. Kahin or arraf means a fortune teller or soothsayer. Okay? What about visiting them without believing them? You go, you sit, fortune teller, just listen. You don't believe them. we don't believe that what they're saying is the truth. Major sin, not kufr. Fine. We can agree it's not, it is not. It's not kufr, right? Okay, yes. So you don't believe them, but the issue is your prayer. Your prayer still won't be accepted for 40 days. You should not go to them at all. So no doubt, going to them is haram. Right? Going to them is haram. Whether you believe them, if you believe them, it's kufr. Right? Or if you believe them via shaitan, it's kufr asghar. But going to them, just going to them and I don't believe it, is a major sin. And it can cause your prayers not to be accepted for 40 days, as the hadith I mentioned. So that would be category number 4, right? Not believing them. All 4 are blameworthy, but there are different levels. Some are major kufr, some minor kufr, some is just major sin. The 5th category is what? The 5th category is visiting a magician or fortune teller to denounce them or expose them, to refute them, right? Test their claims, denounce their falsehood, expose their lies and deception or their fraud. This is permissible in Islam. In fact, it could be obligatory for certain people, like the scholars, who are able to do that, who have the ability to do that. It's a form of amr bil ma'roof wa nahi anil munkar. So even I mentioned Saudi earlier, where they kill the sahir, they have a hay'ah, a special group of scholars who work with the police who do this. So when they get reports of strange activity in a location, in a village, we suspect a sahir, the police will go with the ulama, certain scholars who work with them, to see what's happening, and then they'll give them the appropriate punishment. Understand? And they can then expose it to the people if they want to show this is what was happening. This person's a fraud, especially if it is what affecting others, or if it's someone who's doing it for fame. Then this is obviously something that is required. So those are the 5 categories. The only time it's allowed is to expose and to refute the the magician. Yeah. Next issue is the repentance of a magician accepted or not? Can his tawbah be accepted? Now there's 2 issues here. The one is with Allah. Can Allah forgive him? And the second is, what about in this dunya? If a sahir did sihr, then he makes tawbah, he says, I'll give it up. With the hukm of the dunya, yes. By the ruler. You don't think so? Imam Ahmad, right, said it's not accepted. Why? Because number 1, we can't trust him. Number 2, he still has the knowledge with him. He could go back to it and go back to the harms. So whether his tawbah with Allah is accepted, that's between him and Allah. But in this dunya, yuqtal, he must still be killed. Imam Malik said the same thing. So they said in this dunya, no tawbah. Meaning you make your tawbah between you and Allah. When you meet Allah, that's between you and him. But for us in this dunya, we can't trust you. We can't trust you, so there's no tawbah for you, you must be killed by the ruler. That's the view of these mashayikh. Others said no, tawbah is tawbah if they show, for example, they destroyed their books, they made open tawbah, there's reason to believe them, then we can believe them. Then their life can be spared. Okay, so there's ikhtilaf on this issue as well amongst the ulama. Some of them used the Fir'aun's magicians. They were forgiven. They weren't killed. By the Muslim, okay, Fir'aun killed them, or Fir'aun punished them, but they were not, um, harmed by this. Yani the tawbah was apparently accepted, right? So there is khilaf on this issue. What seems correct is it can be accepted if there's reason to accept it. Our last issue is the issue of removing sihr from an afflicted person. And there's something called an-nushra. Nushra means to remove sihr, right? It means to remove or to undo sihr, right? And there are two ways to do this. Number one is the legitimate way, which is to use ruqya, the Qur'an and the Sunnah, adhkar and dua. This is permissible and is established in the Sunnah, right? That to remove sihr, you do ruqya, you recite. You recite the Qur'an, you make dua, you say an adhkar, and so forth. Okay? And there's plenty of evidence from this in the Sunnah of the Prophet doing ruqya and so forth. The second way to remove sihr is what? Is through sihr itself. So you get another sahir to take sihr out with doing another act of sihr. However, the correct view is what? That this is not permissible. This is haram and it's not permissible. Right? It's not permissible in Islam to do this. Yani sihr, if you say it's kufr, how can you do one act of kufr to remove another act of kufr? Understand? So using sihr to remove sihr is haram. It can only be removed through ruqya and dua and adhkar with Allah Azza wa Jal. طيب, to end off, the author mentioned sarf and atf, which I've basically touched on. Sarf is what? Is when the sihr creates aversion. It causes separation between people, causes the hearts to become averted from each other or hatred for no valid reason, for no apparent reason. Right? And atf is the opposite. A guy loves or is infatuated with a woman, he does sihr on this woman and she becomes infatuated with him. She's in love with him all of a sudden. She's attracted to him. Through sihr, this can happen. Through sihr, this can happen. And of course, this is not permissible. If he does it in the way that we described, using, uqad and ritual spells, then this is an act of kufr that he has committed as well. Right? Wallahu a'lam. That's the end of the chapter of sihr. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. We will do number 8 and 9 next week, inshallah ta'ala. Barakallahu feekum wa jazakumullah khair.